Hi all. Before we get started, I'd like to tell you that this video was recorded several days ago. Tonight is the Jewish New Year, and it is a new beginning. And I had the thought in my head that maybe I would play an old podcast, and then the title hit me, New Beginnings. So let's begin. And as I say, I'm celebrating, but life goes on. I decided that I would do it this way because if we truly were going to focus on new beginnings, then I would need to start with you. All of us need to eat, but not all of us eat in the same way. One of the things that we've been talking about over the last few weeks is the fact that our total lifestyle is such that some people don't have a problem, but most people do because they eat for psychological and emotional reasons. If we are going to be successful, then we need to accept and recognize that everything that has happened to us since we were born has to do with survival. We can't live without food, but we use food for many psychological and emotional issues. I think of the fact that in its roots, AccuWeight Loss for me reflects exactly that. When Dr. Chu found me, and I say that in quotes, I weighed almost 300 pounds. Let's face it, folks. I was not eating for survival on a physiological level. I was eating for emotional and psychological issues. And during the early part of my training with Dr. Chu, he said to me, if you are going to become a weight loss expert, then you have to recognize that you cannot be an overweight weight doctor. I thought about that. I didn't realize at that time that the 50 plus years that I had put in as a licensed psychologist had caused me to burn out. and I weighed almost 300 pounds. I took his advice and I did the program. It was early on in my training, so I didn't fully understand. But he was so insistent and clear that I felt I had no choice. In 3 months, and I was very focused. In 3 months, I lost 84 pounds. Major change in my life. I was weary, and the reason I was weary was because I was doing something that I didn't fully understand. And the only reason I was doing it is he had hit the nail on the head. I had burned out. I was using food to comfort myself, to escape. And I never realized until he confronted me with it that food was comfort and escape for me, and that I would eat almost at any time because it pushed everything away. The taste of the food, the comfort of the food, it was all there. Having lost 84 pounds in 3 months opened my eyes. And the way it opened my eyes is I was still here, except 84 pounds of me had disappeared. I, not happily, had given up my emotional comfort with food, and the weight simply disappeared. The best part was recognizing that I was okay. Being okay overrode the 84 pounds. I didn't even think about it because I didn't even recognize that I was grossly overweight. From that time on, I began to learn what everything was all about. And I realized that what I was doing had changed me remarkably, because I didn't even realize I had given up my comfort. I had given up my escape. And the reason I didn't recognize it is that sticking with the physical aspect of the program, milk, fruits and vegetables, milk, fruits and vegetables, milk, fruits and vegetables, and except for periods where I came in contact with people who shared recipes with me that I could use so that there was variation in my regimen, I didn't even realize how boring it was. I didn't realize that I had suddenly taken control. Part of what's important, at least for me, was the fact that I handled everything and only focused on the scale, and that I was the one who was in control. Up until that time, I had no awareness. You see, even as a psychologist, I didn't realize how overweight I was. I had tried a diet here or there at the insistence of people in my family, but never did so because I was focused, and that I could say for me, it was the right thing to do. In fact, there were many days I was annoyed. And I was annoyed because of the fact, and I don't know about you folks, I would think of something, a food, a treat, and I really wanted it. One, because it felt good, and two, I missed the comfort that it gave me. Because when I was putting something in my mouth, the flavor of it took me someplace else. And there had been days where I truly overindulged. The key here is for us to do something that I never thought of before. I, Dr. Schwartz, Dr. Schwartz, was a child playing in his own life. I had no idea whatsoever that I wasn't taking care of myself, but I became aware of that when I had to take control. The mere fact that I could only eat and had committed to only eating between 12 noon and 6 p.m. was like a mirror facing me. And I realized that the only way I could do that is if I made a commitment. And I never realized that until the end, because I was just beginning to understand during the training period what the program was all about. I believed Dr. Chu when he said I would lose weight. And so I was focused on losing weight and ignored the fact that the only way I could lose weight was if I changed my behavior. And that's what was invisible. I changed my behavior. When I look about it now, it was another stage of my life where when we're young, we get older, we learn things, and we grow up. That's what happened with me. I suddenly realized it was time for me to stop making excuses and to grow up. When I talk with you now, and we talk about new beginnings, when we talk about losing weight, new beginnings for me, and I would hope on some level it means for you, that it's time to make you, and in this case, make me, the most important person in my life. I, for the most part, loved being a psychologist. People would come to me with problems. I would try to help them, and there are aspects of that we can talk about possibly in the future. And I was, so to speak, getting off on the fact that I was helping people and ignoring the fact that I wasn't taking care of myself. And one of the things you hear me talk about nowadays is I spend more time with me than I spend with anyone else. I was almost 300 pounds. That guy who was looking back from the mirror at me, I didn't even recognize who he was. Oh, I knew he was Dr. Schwartz, but I had no idea that I wasn't happy with him. And the reason I wasn't happy with him was because of the fact that I was ignoring him. My patients didn't care that I was 300 pounds. They wanted answers from me. And as I've shared with you in the past, there was this television program, The Naked City. The theme was there are 8 million people in the naked city. And it suddenly dawned on me that in helping them, they expected that I would have 8 million answers. You know something? It's not possible. Not you, nor I, nor anyone you know really has the answer to 8 million stories. I had the answer. I had the ability to control. I had the ability to make changes. But because I was so focused on helping others, I didn't realize that the real answer was inside each of those patients, and that my job for them and my realization today is that my job was to help them search in their lives for the answer to the questions that they had. And that once they found the answer, life changed because they started liking who they were as compared to the person that they were living with, they themselves, that person, and they got up in the morning with someone they were not happy with. And they spent the entire day with someone they were not happy with. And that promoted the fact that since they didn't like the person that they got up in the morning and lived with, they were doing things to ignore that. They were doing things to escape, psychological and emotional kinds of things, because they didn't know they had the answers and the truth. It's simple. You have to recognize that you are the most important person in your own life. So let's stop. Let's grow up. We're all adults here. And let's ask ourselves, does it make sense that I am not the most important person in my life? I don't know about you, but that doesn't make any sense. Therefore, what I was doing was not good for me. And as I began to have insight into that, I recognized different things. Like, people would say to me outside of therapy and the world that I lived in, that's selfish. And I would think about it. On some level, it was a criticism. But then I realized it made no sense. How could I be selfish if I didn't have a self? I had all this training, but the training didn't help me recognize what my role really was. And I began to be able to help my patients and be more effective, because as they began to treat themselves in a better fashion, they began to like themselves better. And the more they liked themselves better, the more they wanted that feeling to stay within them. And so they had to begin to reflect on how they interacted with the rest of their world. And they would modify their behaviors slightly, because if they did not treat the rest of their world in a more positive way, they were less happy with themselves. And the more they treated people in a more sensible and appropriate way, the more they began to like themselves. The patient, and in my case, recognized that as they began to like the who that they are, the better they felt. And that's when Dr. Chu came into my life. And remember what I said. He said to me, "You cannot be an overweight doctor." Makes a lot of sense. What do we do? And since I was not clear about the basics of what became the AccuWeight and now the AccuLife program, the evolution, as I began to understand that this was simply chemistry. You are looking at me, I can't see you, but I'm a machine, a living, breathing machine, and you are a living, breathing machine. And how you deal with that machine is going to impact upon your life. And the more control you have, the more you like the you that you are, things change. And I've shared those things with you, as I told you with the engineer who was 357 pounds, loses almost 200 pounds, and his life began to change. All he did, and yes, he did lose weight, and he lost weight because he did the program. And then he realized something. People must have recognized that he wasn't happy with himself. Why was he so grossly overweight? And people reacted and responded to him because, in his words that we talked about after the fact, when he called me on the phone and said, Dr. Schwartz, I've lost almost 200 pounds. When I was 357, I was invisible. Now I've lost almost 200 pounds. I've got a new job. People talk to me. People involve me in their lives. I'm doing all kinds of things. Yet I was invisible. He wasn't invisible. The messages he was sending out was, I'm not happy with me. Now, how many of you would enjoy being with people who are not happy with themselves? We have a program that works. I've been doing this for 25 plus years. In those 25 years, I have never had anyone get sick doing this program. That simply says to me, the program is healthy. I also say, you're going to lose 15 pounds, and I've changed the wording here or there, a month, every 30 days, and whatever. And those are just numbers. As we have converted to the AccuLife program, my emphasis now is getting you to look at you and say, if I can begin to treat myself in a more appropriate manner, getting to like myself better, why I choose to lose weight is not anyone's business. And the reason it's no one's business is, if you are an adult, why is it necessary for you to explain to people what and why you're doing it. Unless you can say to me that what I'm doing will harm me, then I think what you have to say is reasonable. But if it's not going to harm me and you're telling me it's going to harm me, my question to you is, those people who criticize, what's their agenda? The answer is very simple. Your behavior, as you begin to like and take care of yourself in a better manner, is evoking something in them. It's troubling them. Or they would say, that's great. You're taking care of yourself. How wonderful. Tell me more. Instead, their criticism comes out. You're not powerless and helpless. And that's one of the things, both in therapy and on the AccuLife program, people come in and they see themselves as powerless and helpless. And the reason they see themselves as powerless and helpless is because of the fact that experientially, on whatever program they were doing, for whatever reason they were doing it, when the road got hard, when it got difficult, when they didn't feel comforted, they failed. And so when they come to me nowadays, and we focus solely on the chemistry of the program, we have raised the odds of repeating history. Like me, I was using food for comfort and escape. And the most important thing was comfort and escape. I was not happy, period. It made no difference that I was a psychologist at that point in time. What had happened was, after X number of years, I burned out. I didn't know it at the time. It was the beginning of a new stage in the world. Burnout was not a word. Now, depression was a word, but I was not someone who would use drugs. And so, even though I guess I had a sense that I was depressed, I wasn't going to go to medication. I unconsciously went to the one thing that I was born with: food for comfort. And as you heard me talk about us born in trauma because we were 100% being taken care of, which means everything was being done for me. My mother took care of everything. And between one moment and the next, out I popped, and I didn't have any awareness that it was now all up to me. Because once I popped out, I didn't have the ability to take care of myself. But I did, as I've shared with you, had a survival mechanism. It's called crying. And when I cried, I controlled people. When you cried, you controlled people. And for a period of time, when I cried, I controlled people. They paid attention to me. And so I survived. How many of us on different levels suddenly recognize, more deeply some than others, that crying controls people? And we use it to manipulate people. One of the things that happens, however, is they begin to catch on. And therefore, it stops working. Getting back to that, our program is different from all others in the fact that the chemistry behind it is only the reason that it works. Intermittent fasting was invented by the creators of this program. They didn't know what intermittent fasting was. It wasn't a concept. But the reason that it works is chemical. When you finish eating at 6 o'clock, your body burns up any carbohydrates that are left. And then you still need energy. Fat does nothing. And that was something physiological and is millions of years old. So the body learned to store fat as a source of energy for survival. Farming, and I didn't realize it, didn't really start till about 10,000 years ago. So built into our DNA, the whole reason for our existence is the fat is there to help us survive. And not only that, but you're not cannibalizing your body. Do you realize that? You're not eating. You burn up the carbohydrates, and then your body begins to take your fat, convert your fat to a sugar called glycogen, and you live off the energy that comes from the converted fat. So you don't burn muscle, you don't burn organ, you don't leach minerals from the bones, you don't impact on your metabolism, and your body grows and becomes healthier. Knowing all of that is wonderful, but being deep down this feeling of powerlessness and helplessness, well, you're not powerless and helpless. Become the man or the woman that you are. Stop and say it out loud. And the reason I ask you to say it out loud, one of the things that I've learned over a lifetime is if it's in your head, it's wonderful. It's not in the real world. Until you actually verbalize it, until you bring it out of your head, it's not real. Say, I'm an adult. I have a right to make a decision because I'm an adult. I'm in charge of me. And when I make decisions that I like, it makes me feel good. I like the me that I am. Instead of scurrying away and hiding because I feel powerless and helpless based upon life experience. This is new beginnings. Let's begin new. So we have to say, and there are many ways of saying without involving the rest of the world. I've made a decision. I want to lose weight. Stop. What'd you say? You want to make a decision to lose weight? Terrific. Why? Because it's your decision and it's your right to do so. But I'm giving up all my escape, my comfort that I get, that I'll have to implement if I follow through. So let me ask you a question. What makes you unhappy that you say you want to lose weight? How do you feel? Once you say, I like it and I like what's happening, you're not powerless and helpless anymore. And as you promote avoiding powerless and helplessness, you begin to change your world and your surroundings. Think of the social situations you've been in, and you suddenly come across people who really, and you can tell by their behavior, they are happy with who they are. And you know the fake ones who put up these false walls and pictures. And you like to be close to these people who really like themselves. Why? Because you can see how good it feels. And you want some of it to rub off on you. I just gave you the answer. You have it. But, and remember that word but, that's a big word. I use the analogy when I say, I love you, but the moment I say, I love you, but don't you dare trust the word that I'm saying. I either love you or I don't love you. If I love you, there is no but. If you love you, there is no but. It's how. It's recognizing I have the ability to do that. And once we implement the ability to do that, we begin to change our lives. And as we begin to change our lives, what happens is we begin to be happier with who we are. And the happier we are with who we are, the stronger we get. Because it feels so darn good. The difficult thing is to recognize that you're giving up your escapist behavior. And you're giving up your escapist behavior for moments of feeling comfort. How many of you who are truly overweight have a snack or something and say it lasts? You only like it for that short period of time when it's in your mouth and you escape with it. And as soon as it's finished, those other feelings begin to come back. On the other hand, think of all the successes you've had and recognize that each time you've had a success, how you like the who that you are. And with food, it disappears. But there are still those situations. And every single time, it could be 20 years later, that you suddenly remember how good it felt that you took care of you. This is the time for new beginnings, and we begin by beginning new. You can't change the past. It is what it is. There are good things, there are bad things, but you can learn from the past. And I know I repeat myself sometimes, and this again is one of those times. It's the reason I created the Magic Protocol. Those unhappy things that occurred in my life, I don't want to remember them. I need to learn from them. And every single time I've overcome one of those, the success that I had sticks with me. And so the more I can have those successes, the more I like myself, the more my behavior changes, and the more my behaviors change, the more I change, and my life begins to change. And who knows what comes next? Certain rules. Rule number 1, I am the most important person in my life. I am not selfish. I'm putting myself first, but I'm not selfish if I'm not happy with the self that I am. So I have to have a self in order to be selfish. And it protects me. And how does it protect me? Because when I am not treating myself as the most important person in my life, I either escape from it because I don't like the feeling, or I make myself the most important person and realize I'm not letting go of that. It feels darn good. I like being in charge of me. I see how all of those kinds of things have limited my ability to function in the world. The key here is we must verbalize. If it's in your head, it's a wonderful thing, or it could be, but it's not real. Bringing it out and how you do that is irrelevant. But once you acknowledge and bring it out, it puts you in charge. Because what you're saying is, I'm important. I'm worth it. And it makes me feel good. So I'm going to do other things to make it work and to make me feel good. And it compounds itself. Remember something else. There is only one foolish question. The question is the one you don't ask. How can you be foolish? How can anyone say anything if you say, I do not know? Boy, you're stupid. You don't know. There are a million reasons why you don't know. But the moment you say, I don't know, help me, you can move on. You can use that. And that's how you can learn about people in your life as well. What used to irritate me no end is in the early grades when I worked for the public schools, every once in a while, I'd hear a teacher, usually in the lower grades, tell a child that's a stupid question. It would irritate the heck out of me. And when that teacher was alone, I would go up to them and I would say, how much is 10,354 times 6,222? And they would look at me and say, I don't know. I would say then, the reason you don't know, how does it make you feel? And she would say, often. Right now, you made me feel stupid. I would say, how does that kid feel when you said that's a stupid question? Aren't you there to teach? If they didn't know and they say to you, I don't know, then let's teach them. Let's help them grow. Let's help them become. You have the answers to everything because it's your life experience. And the more you like yourself, the more you care about yourself, the more real you are. It takes time, but you change and grow. And as you grow, the environment around you changes as well. Let's make this beginning anew. You will change your life. It will never be the same again. And there are no miracles here. It takes time to begin anew because you must accept the old. You don't have to like it. You have to learn from it. Are you happy repeating it again and again and again and not feeling good or successful about it? But you do it again and again, hoping that this time it will be different. If you repeat your behavior, it's only if circumstances around you change are the odds greater that you'll be successful. But by repeating the behavior over and over again, what you're saying is, I'm powerless and helpless to do anything about it, but I get momentary relief when food becomes an issue here. And so I escape into food. Losing 84 pounds in 3 months didn't change my life. What changed my life was recognizing that I had the ability. I didn't have any insight or understanding. I changed my behavior. And 84 pounds disappeared. I had power. I was not helpless. And I began to learn and change. Remember, if it's in your head, it's fine, but it's not real. Verbalize it. And not only that, but you'll know if it's the truth. And that's what sets you free. Because now you have the choice and the opportunity to grow and learn from those. And by learning from those, you feel better about yourself. It makes it easier to lose the weight. Doing our program, you change the shape of your body. You become healthier. And there's more stuff we have to learn. And I'm going to start teaching as well. Simple little things that are going to make you healthier and like yourself better. I want to thank you for spending this time with me. I'm saying to you, find a way of communicating with me. I will help you find your answer. I will not give you the answer. And I'll use the example I do with our maintenance program. I can give you a program. If you do it, I tell you, you will never, ever, ever again need to go on a diet. Here's the problem. I don't know how long it's going to take. It might be quick, it might be a while, but you're going to get up one morning and say, why am I living my life food-wise the way Dr. Schwartz told me to live my life? I want to live my life the way I want to live my life. And how come no one ever taught me? And the answer is, what's the answer? I didn't feel important enough. And why didn't you feel important enough? New beginnings. Begin anew. Thanks. Communicate. I'll be with you soon.